Hello, my name's Emily, and I wanted to talk to you today about the deaf community and the negative stigma that we as a hearing society have put onto them. This world is a hearing world. The majority of the people that roam the earth can hear, right? So of course that means that the ones who cannot hear are the minority. Us as hearing people feel like we need to help the deaf people. We need to accommodate them. We need to give them access and resources in which they can live in our world. Something that I have learned is that the deaf don't need our help, nor do they want it. I know it's kind of weird. You're like, well, why does somebody who doesn't have something doesn't want help from the ones who do have it? Well, it got me thinking. The deaf people don't want our help, and I don't blame them for not wanting our help. Throughout generations, decades, us as hearing people have put the deaf people down. We've made them feel like they're less than. We've discriminated against them and disrespected them as a whole, as a community. We've just degraded them to where they have learned that us as hearing people would rather hurt them than help them. For my 4 years of high school and about a year and a half before then, have been studying American Sign Language. The language, the culture, the people, everything about it. I've been studying it for about 5.5 years now. And for my 4 years of high school, I took an American Sign Language class. My teacher, Miss Shavs, she made the biggest impact in my entire life. Every aspect of my life, she impacted. She was incredible and just unbelievable. So I took sign language for 4 years, and for all 4 years, I had the same nagging question in my brain. Why do we, as hearing people, feel the need to help the deaf people? Then I graduated, and I never got that answer. So I had to try and come up with an answer on my own. I had to do the research and study to determine why we feel like we have to help them. I came to the conclusion that us as a hearing society deems that we are better than the deaf. We have something that they don't have. We have the ability to hear. They don't. So because we have something that they don't, of course that makes us better than them, right? Wrong. Just because they can't hear like we do doesn't mean they can't hear at all. Yeah, they might have lost full hearing abilities. Medically, they might be medically diagnosed as deaf or hard of hearing. They can still hear. They hear the music, they hear the rain, they hear everything that we hear. They just do it differently. And why does that have to be so bad? Why does that difference between the deaf and the hearing have such a negative stigma to it? So I dug a little deeper. The deaf people, when they hear through vibrations and through body language. The vibrations that they hear can be from the music, from the rain, from the earth. They have such a bond with the earth that they live on that us hearing people will never have. For example, when a deaf person wants to listen to music, they can. They just turn their music on just like anyone else. The way that they can do it is sometimes you may find a deaf person who takes their shoes off and they put their bare feet on the ground. They feel the vibrations of the sound waves throughout their entire body. They feel it all. they can hear every rise and fall of the music, every instrument, every beat or bass. They hear it all, just like we do. But they hear it in a way that, for some reason, us humans, or hearing people, can't understand. As for body language, when a deaf person walks in a room, they scan the room and see if there are any other deaf people in there. And if they've determined that there are only deaf or only hearing people, they immediately make an observation, and they can determine who will appreciate them for them and who will be able to have a conversation with them just in a matter of seconds. It's kind of fascinating. The biggest stigma that I came across in my research and in my 5.5 years of being a part of the community is us as hearing people have deemed the deaf people as hearing impaired. Now that is a very offensive term, and I'll get into that a little bit later, but they're not. They don't have an impairment. Yeah, they can't hear, but they still hear just in a different way, as I've said before. They can't. Just because they're deaf doesn't mean that they're impaired or they need to be fixed. Us as a hearing society just determined to fix the deaf people. We had all of the case studies, all of the research, all of the cochlear implants implanted on the deaf because we felt like they needed to be fixed because something was wrong with them. It baffles me how much we've entitled ourselves into thinking that the deaf are less than us. The deaf can't hear. That's a fact. They're not less than us. Some hearing people can't see. Are they less than us? Some hearing people have lost limbs. Are they less than us? Some hearing people have mental issues. Are they less than us? No, they're not. So why are the deaf? Why do we think that the deaf are less than us just because they can't hear? They're not. We just simply don't have the understanding to understand them. Another stigma that I have learned is that us as a hearing society think the deaf are too much work or too hard to accommodate. They don't need our accommodations and they don't want them. They know how to accommodate themselves. They've lived their entire lives in a hearing society who put them down and make them feel less than. So trust me when I say that they know how to move about this world. They know how to move throughout our society. They don't need us to tell them. This world is a hearing world, but the deaf do not need our help. We put so much pressure on the deaf to be what we think they should be, instead of them just being themselves. This generation is super into being yourself and coming out of your shell and showing the world who you really are. But when it comes to the deaf, they're not allowed. They're ex-nayed. They shouldn't be a part of it. This world has so many flaws, and so many people have had to deal with them. So, I encourage you guys, if you ever meet a deaf person out in the world, stop. Introduce yourself. Shake their hand. And show them a little bit of respect for everything that we've put them through. Because it might not seem like a lot to you, but it's a whole world to them. And they deserve it. Thank you.